Welcome to EPG Pathashala. I am Dr. T.S. Ravishankar, former Director Epigraphy, Archaeological Survey of India, Mysore. The paper is Indian Epigraphy, the module Early Brahmi, 3rd century BC E to Gupta Brahmi. The learning objectives of this module is to understand the nature and characteristic feature, evolution of Brahmi script from 3rd century BC to Gupta period. As a preamble, I should know, and as a student of humanities and student of ancient history and archaeology, you should know the art of writing, what it means. And David Dirriger beautifully defines art of writing is nothing but a graphic representation of language. India has its own large number of writings, and in fact, writing is a thing which has placed us in a very different scenario today. In the absence of writing, we would have been in a totally different world. It would have paralyzed the entire thing. Now, ancient world has given us very important writing systems, and it has undergone evolution over the period of time. There were different systems of writing. Even coming to the antiquity of writing in India, we have with us the Indus script, which has presumed to be started from 2500 BC and up to 1750 BC. We have a large number of seals and sealings, which are even to this day has remained as an enigmatic thing, and proper decipherment, decoding could not be done, lack of biscriptal or bilingual thing. Now, after that 1750 to BC, there is a huge gap, there is a huge wide gap from up to 3rd century BC. If at all, where did the writing, what writing we had, and all of a sudden in 3rd century BC or even little earlier, writing, our inscriptions started appearing, and it is named in Brahmi script. So what happened? This huge, even we have to wait for the spade of the archaeologist to bring some more material to connect the past, that is from the Indus to this, though there are various theories like indigenous, origin of antiquity of writing, various theories are there as far as Indian thing is there. Right from, we start from 3rd century BC, we have evolved Brahmi with us. It is one of the major scripts. As we know, India is very rich in epigraphical wealth. Hundreds and thousands inscriptions have come to light throughout the length of India. Epigraphy forms one of the very, very important primary source for understanding history and culture of people. It is the primary source, apart from archaeological source, especially for ancient early period, we totally depend on epigraphical sources to know their history, the culture, the background, so many things. And many times it supplements many archaeological finds. So thus epigraphy has its own unique place in understanding. It's a primary source. Like that, we have numismatics, seals and sealings, coins, and epigraphy is a very major source. And India has large number of inscriptions reported from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, from north to east and west. We have plenty of inscriptions, and more than 1 lakh of inscriptions have been deciphered, and still a lot more remains to be deciphered, and every explorative measures are being taken to give impetus to this. The Archaeological Survey of India has a branch, epigraphy branch. One is located at Mysore with Sanskrit and Dravidian inscriptions. Another branch at Nagpur to look into the Arabic and Persian inscriptions. That apart, many archaeological departments, state archaeological department, universities are also equally involved, and many freelance epigraphists are there. They are day to day discovering many large number of inscriptions. But it's a time, great awareness has to be created among the masses, because unless we highlight the importance of our history and culture, a large number of inscriptions are vanishing. And we have to sensitize the public, take the importance. Many big rock inscriptions are being used as a washing stone. And then many coins are disappearing just for the the metal value, they are being smelted, and many copper plate records are just for the copper value, they are just smelted. So there is a great need to create awareness among the people and to tell, if we lose a sheet of copper plate, we lose a page in the history. So thus now a time has come, a great awareness has to be created to enrich our knowledge, and the importance of epigraphy is provided, because in a larger scale vandalism is going on in different parts, and due to crash commercialization, large chunk of lands are vanishing, along with the monuments, and inscriptions are also being lost. So this a very important thing. As students or as a citizens of India, we have a honest responsibility to maintain, to preserve and conserve, so that we can take this beautiful records to our next generation. Without past, there is no present. Without present, there is no future. It is one continuity, and epigraphy is one of the main source, especially for early ancient period. There is nothing like epigraphy. It's a very, very important source, and to enrich our knowledge which is required. Inscriptions are available now from Maurya period, Ashokan onwards, to medieval and late medieval period. Large number of inscriptions are found, mainly lithic, that is stone inscriptions and copper plates, and rarely we find on other materials like wood, bricks, shells and other materials are also used, but largely they are seen on stone. It may be an Ashokan boulder, it may be on the image of an inscription or on a pillar or anything. So Brahmi is one of the earliest widely used major pan-Indian script found throughout. Along with that, of course, we have Kharoshthi, but Brahmi is the only script which has undergone evolution. There is a long history of evolution from 3rd century BC to 12th century. Of course, it continued little further also. Along with Ashokan rock edicts, especially in the northern India, we have some more inscriptions like Mahastan, Saugwara, Piprava and others. Though scholars they have taken it to earlier phase, but DC Sarkar and others, they feel they belong to 3rd century BC. Brahmi, as I said, has a long history starting from 3rd century BC to 12th century, because major dynasties came and rose and they have given a beautiful inscriptions. Brahmi was not only a pan-Indian script, but it was mother of all the scripts. Whatever the scripts now employed, all they owe to Brahmi, and there is this one. But the one big enigmatic problem arises when you think of the origin. The origin of Brahmi is still shrouded mystery. We don't have, scholars are still debating over the origin of script. There are indigenous theories, there are foreign theories, but nothing is finally acceptable for this. Still discussion, debate is going on as far the origin of Brahmi is concerned. There are, as I said, there are theories both indigenous and foreign. But when we look into the Brahmi inscription of Ashoka or even other edicts, it has come to us in a most evolved form. If at all it did, what are the other earlier stages? But we are getting the thing with the full vowels and consonants in Brahmi, Ashokan Brahmi inscription. What are the other stages? We don't know. But it is perfected to an extent. It is CG Upasak phase. It is because of the exertions of the grammarians. It is finally set to suit all the phonetic values of earlier Prakrit, of course later Sanskrit inscriptions too. All the Brahmi inscriptions are from 3rd century BC to 5th century AD, classified as early Brahmi, Middle Brahmi and Late Brahmi. Those that falls in early Brahmi are from 3rd century BC to 2nd century BC. Middle Brahmi somewhere starts from 1st century BC to 2nd century AD, and Late Brahmi is from 2nd century to 4th century AD. Though by and large Middle Brahmi is not that much in vogue, when we record history, either we put it as early Brahmi and those as Late Brahmi. Middle Brahmi is not that much in vogue at present when we record. And the paleographers, for the convenience sake, they used to call it as Mauryan Brahmi, Ashokan Brahmi, Shunga, Kshatrapa Brahmi, because apart from the rulers, there are many other inscriptions belonging to the same period. So it may be a misnomer just to call a Mauryan Brahmi, but for our convenience, to convince the students and to understand the significance, dynastic names are still popular, and it is best way of understanding the different scripts of different period. So that's how it is called Mauryan or Ashokan Brahmi, and subsequently we have the Shungan Brahmi, Kshatrapa, Kushan and Gupta, and further evolutions are there. But for us, we are confining up to Gupta Brahmi in this module. Other than Brahmi, Ashoka got his edicts engraved in Kharoshti. It is also one of the major script. It is found from, it's a script prevailing from 3rd century BC to 3rd century AD and the rest of the thing. And here we are going to see how the inscriptions are being engraved. Normally, inscription, lithic or copper plate, there are one is a composer, another is a writer, another person is engraver. See, a writer is supposed to have the calligraphy, knowledge of calligraphical knowledge. Whereas an engraver, implicitly he whatever written, he will try to engrave it with the help of a tool, with a chisel. And here in the Mauryan phase, it is a very, very simple technique. They employed a chalk or a tool to first to write and then chisel it in a very, very simple manner. It's a longish chalk piece or a charcoal or hematite to write. Later engraved or cut inscription, that's how we found. Ashoka said, wherever huge boulders are there, carry on my message, dharma, to the public or to the subjects. So that's why you have a large number of inscriptions written on boulders, on pillars, in caves and other things. Now here a chart is just appended here, and Brahmi, when you look at, they are simple geometric, they are very, very simple in their appearance, but over the period of time it changes. But Brahmi is very simple. Now we have to dispel the notion that epigraphy is a difficult subject. But if you look into this, even any person can try to acquire early Brahmi and subsequently can try to learn the Brahmis which evolved in subsequent period. When you look into this, they are nothing but a simple geometrical designs, one having squarish form and a length with a equal vertical line. And this is a very important pillar inscription, Rumindi pillar inscription. When you look into it, how beautiful it looks like. A well polished stone and very well engraved, equal giving space to each letter, and have given attention to each and every letter in forming the letter, whether the consonant or the vowel sign, it is beautifully engraved. The most important aspect is here humanity, which is seen in the later inscriptions, the absence of serif. Serif is not seen, especially in the early Brahmi up to end of the first BC. And the ratio is maintained. Within the vertical strain, you see the verticals are drawn and the horizontal also maintained, and this is how you see the equal length is maintained, ratio is maintained between the verticals and horizontal. And another thing we have to bear in mind is, though the Ashokan edicts are found throughout the length and breadth of the country with regional variations, We may not, scholars doesn't accept or give a name, it is the Eastern variety or the Western variety. No, it is one single, it is called the imperial script. With all the variations, you may find many variations in engraving vowels or consonants, but it goes under one nomenclature, it is imperial script. And he engraved, scribes to engrave each and every part, along with the royal scribe, they went and to copy. And we have a name like Chapada mentioned in one of the rock edicts, who is also a great scribe who did this. Now, these are the vowels and consonants. You may see very simple form, a vertical stroke with curves, the upper curve and the lower arms you may see in the letter A, and the lengthening we have seen in the middle, a stroke is added to give the lengthening sign A, and 3 dots in the apex manner you see the top and 2 strokes below, 2 dots, it is vowel E. Again, when the Sanskrit language developed, to suit the phonetic value, they added one more dot above, it gives E length sign is added, and like our Greek, Roman letter L is written for U. To add another length, they have added one more stroke in the middle to get the lengthening sign U, and A is written. Again, to get the vowel sign I, on the left side, they have added one stroke on the top. O, again, stroke, you find the stroke drawn above, it stands for O. So, this is very simple forming of vowels, and later on by adding strokes, they have derived other vowel signs. So, these are the things. And the consonants, when you look, they are very simple. As I said, the prominent features, you don't see the head marks, which slowly in later phase it got appearing. Now, it is a simple, Ka is written like a cross, and the Kha is also there. So, these are the different letters which are very simple to learn, practice. And then once you practice the vowels and consonants, you can try to attempt simple inscriptions where our pedestal, small inscriptions are there, this one. Again, in the southern India, we have a very famous inscription, Bhattiprolu, and it is one of the earliest inscription belong to 3rd century BC. It's a casket inscription which mentions about the Shrenis, the merchant community, and their donation or gift to stupa. So, this forms the important. And other than that, we have inscriptions from Nanaghat, Hathigumpha, these are all the earlier inscriptions. Though in the earlier phase there are few inscriptions were there, but in course of time, when the subjects got acquainted with the knowledge of Brahmi, they started, whenever they visited any place like Sanchi, other places, they got their visit engraved, their name and they made a larger number of gifts of pillars, by troughs, so many things. Whenever any gift is given to a stupa, they recorded. So, this is a very important phase in this. Now, you say there is a paradigm shift taking place by the end of the Christian era with the advent of the Shaka Kshatrapas. After the dismemberment of the Mauryan Empire, small principalities, rulers, they started emerging. Especially we see change taking place with the advent of the Shaka Kshatrapas. They brought them a new tool called pen technique. With them, the entire system of writing changed, and each individual letter got particular attention, and they enhanced the aesthetic value of the letters. It is not the simple Brahmi, a major change is taking place when you see an inscription like Mathura inscription of Shodasha. In the beginning of the more and more inscriptions made their appearance in different parts of India. So, they try to classify, especially Dani, while dealing with these aspects, he tried to recognize geographical distribution. Based on that, he has tried to mention 4 important centers. One is Eastern India with Magadha as its nucleus center, in the south of Ganges, Kaushambi, in the northwest it centers like Taxila, Mathura. So, and in the northwest Deccan and South India, these are the main categories under which he is trying to show based on the different letter of the inscriptions available. Why the change? Because with the Prakrit as a official language, it tried to end somewhere in the 2nd century, 3rd century AD in the north, and little it continued in the south up to 4th century AD. But with the emergence of Sanskrit, they felt some more changes has to be brought out, especially in the vowel signs. To suit the phonetic change in the Sanskrit language, certain changes were effected, especially in vowel signs and others. Again, Dani has tried to see the important paleographical aspects, and he has tried to see changes that are seen in the formation of letters. For example, different groups which are prominently seen in the Kshatrapas, Kushans and Kshatrapa. The first relates to the shaping of the head mark. When you see an earlier inscription like Ashokan rock edicts, it is bereft, it is without head mark. And here, mainly because of the pen technique which later followed, they unconsciously they try to make a mark with a thickening head and the lower end tapers off. So, slowly you find the emergence of head mark on the letters. And the second change is the style of medial vowels. Earlier in the Ashokan rock edict, a simple stroke was attached, but here they try to make it more stylish. Vowels with a curve, with a giant, so it altogether give a different forms. So the medial vowels is very important when you see the change. And the third influence is in the cursive hands. You know, the different centers we have seen, each has their own mannerism of engraving thing. So this third change also you see. And the fourth change is the ornamentation. So the aesthetic value to appreciate, you know, they added mainly the vowel signs were mainly responsible for elaborating the ornamentation and the flourishes which are seen particularly in the when they mark the vowel signs. This is a very important aspect to be seen from the inscription up to even Gupta, and later it is more prominently seen the ornamentation. When we see the Siddhamatrika shell characters, this is very prominently seen, especially post Gupta also, that are very important. Now the Kushan, as we said, you know, the earlier we said when we were mentioning about the Ashokan rock edict, it is one simple imperial style, but large number of inscriptions which are reported belong to the Kushana territory, they try to classify them as the northern and eastern variety based on the letter formation. Mostly you find the head mark in the northern variety, and eastern variety is without head mark. It is a simple stroke. Here we are seeing the vowels in the first instance that are shown from the Ashokan to the Gupta phase in different stages, how it all appeared like vowel A, for example, in the Ashokan phase, and then of course little later Maurya, Bhattiprolu, Shunga, Kushan, Kshatrapa. You may slowly see the changes that has been taking place, especially in the vowels like A, and other categories also shown like how it appeared on the rock writing and other, because it is also seen on the potsherds and other material, the early Brahmi characters. And the vowel E also you may see in the second sentence, how the vowel E has seen, especially when you come to the Gupta phase, you find two dots are put on the left side of the vertical. So this is a change which takes place. More radical changes started appearing from the Gupta phase further, but more or less it remained same in the earlier phase. And as far as other vowels are you have seen, now the consonants you see is a simple sign right from Gupta again to the Kushan. In the Gupta phase you find the vertical stroke with a horizontal this one, and in the Shunga, Kshatrapa or Kushana phase, the horizontal stroke is slightly taken above, even with a slight appearance of head mark. It is also called dagger variety of the ka. And you may see in the further stages, the lower vertical is slightly drawn. And there are certain consonants which has not undergone much changes, like ta, tha. These are the things, they remained over the period of time without much of evolution, and da and other thing. And especially when you look into the letter na, two horizontal stroke connected with a vertical line, and over the period of time the lower base, the lower vertical stroke is slightly bent. That's how you see the evolution from 3rd century BC to the Gupta phase. Even the further letters like pa, you see there is lengthening. Hook-like object is shown like pa, and then ba also is just a squarish one, and there is no much change seen over the period of time, except in the Gupta phase, the left side of the is some dent is shown. Now bha is seen here, and ma also has not undergone, except when you come to the Gupta phase. The earlier phase you see ma, it is cursive, but in subsequent period the lower it becomes angular variety, you find that. And then Mauryan phase you find the tiled variety of ma and rest of the thing. So this how this one. Just to summarize, you have seen right from the beginning how from 3rd century or even little earlier, 4th century BC, how the script has evolved and how a large number of inscriptions have come, and how the earlier paleographers like Dani could classify them according to the region wise, according to the script wise, and that's how we have a large material from 3rd century BC to 5th century AD, and this is how Brahmi, you can see the evolution, you can see the changes, and it's a very, very prominent. From further also from Gupta onwards there is further changes you will see, but we have just introduced you to the beginning, the first stage of its evolution, which is very clearly seen, markedly seen from 3rd century to Gupta period.